The stars looked different from up here. Tae-hyun pressed his hand against the cold window of New Seoul Station and watched Earth spin below. The blue marble turned slowly, and somewhere down there was the home he'd left 3 years ago. But home felt small now. The galaxy was so much bigger than he ever imagined. "Stop daydreaming and get back to work," Dongwoo called from across the maintenance bay. His friend was elbow-deep in a fusion reactor panel, cursing at the wiring. Tae-hyun grinned and walked over. "I wasn't daydreaming, I was thinking." "Same thing with you." Dongwoo pulled his head out of the panel, his face smudged with grease. "We've got 3 more reactors to check before shift ends. The chief will kill us if we're late again." They worked in silence for a while, the hum of machinery filling the space between them. Tae-hyun had been working on New Seoul Station for 2 years now, keeping the massive orbital platform running. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid well, and more importantly, it let him see things most humans never would. The station was a meeting place for dozens of alien species. Every day brought someone new through its corridors. "Hey, did you hear?" Dongwoo said suddenly. "There's a big diplomatic thing happening tonight, up in the observation deck. All the important aliens will be there." Tae-hyun raised an eyebrow. So we should go. Free food, fancy drinks. Come on, when else do we get to rub shoulders with actual ambassadors? We're maintenance workers. They won't let us in. Dongwoo pulled out 2 ID cards with a triumphant smile. "Ki-young owes me a favor. These will get us past security, what do you say?" Tae-hyun thought about it. He should probably go home and sleep. Tomorrow's shift started early, but the idea of seeing real alien diplomats up close, of maybe talking to them, learning about their worlds, that was too good to pass up. "Fine, but if we get caught, I'm blaming you." The observation deck was even more impressive than Tae-hyun expected. The entire ceiling was transparent, showing the cosmos in all its glory. Aliens of every shape and size mingled below that canopy of stars. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few didn't seem to have solid bodies at all. The air hummed with a dozen different languages being translated through personal devices. Dongwoo grabbed 2 glasses of something blue and fizzy from a passing server. "This is amazing. Look at that guy, he's got 4 arms. "Try not to stare," Tae-hyun said, but he was staring too. How could he not? A year ago, he'd been fixing air conditioners in Busan. Now he was standing in a room with beings from across the galaxy. That's when he saw her. She stood near the far window, alone despite the crowd. Her hair was black as space itself, falling straight down her back. She wore a dark red dress that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. But it was her eyes that caught him. Even from across the room he could see they were red. Not brown with hints of red, but actually crimson like fresh blood. "That's a Sangvex," Dongwoo whispered, following his gaze. "A vampire." "Vampires aren't real," Tae-hyun said automatically. "They are out here. Well, not exactly like the old stories, but close enough. They drink blood, they live forever, and they're supposed to be really dangerous. That one's Nari, the Sangvex ambassador. She's been here for a week." Tae-hyun couldn't look away. There was something magnetic about her, something that pulled at him. She turned slightly, and for a moment their eyes met across the crowded room. Her expression didn't change, but he felt something, a spark of recognition maybe, or curiosity. "I dare you to go talk to her," Dongwoo said with a sly smile. "What? No. Why not? You're always saying humans can get along with anyone. Prove it." "That's different. She's an ambassador. I'm just..." "Scared?" Dongwoo's smile widened. "The great Tae-hyun scared of a pretty girl? She's not a girl, she's probably older than our entire country. Even better, think of the stories she could tell." Dongwoo leaned closer. "I'll make you a deal. If you can get her to agree to date you, I'll cover all your shift rotations for a year. A whole year, Tae-hyun. You could actually take a vacation." Tae-hyun's heart started beating faster. A year of shifts was worth a lot, but more than that, the challenge itself called to something in him. He'd never been good at backing down from a dare. It was what got him into trouble as a kid, and what got him off Earth and into space as an adult. You're serious? Completely. But it has to be a real date. She has to actually agree to go out with you. Tae-hyun looked at Nari again. She was still standing by the window, now talking to a tall alien with blue skin. He had no idea how to approach a vampire ambassador. What did you even say to someone like that? But backing down felt worse than failing. Fine. You've got a deal. He started walking before he could change his mind. Each step felt longer than the last. The crowd seemed to part around him, and then he was standing in front of her. Up close, she was even more striking. Her skin was pale, almost luminous in the starlight. Those red eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made his mouth go dry. "Hello?" he said, and immediately felt stupid. Of all the clever things he could have said, he went with hello. "Hello," she replied. Her voice was soft but clear, with an accent he couldn't place. "You are human." "Yes. My name is Tae-hyun. I work here on the station." He paused. "I wanted to ask you something." One elegant eyebrow lifted slightly. Ask. This was it. No turning back now. "Would you like to go out with me? On a date, I mean. I could show you around the station, or we could go down to Earth. There are some great places in Seoul, or Busan if you prefer the coast. I know I'm probably not what you're used to, but yes." Tae-hyun stopped mid-ramble. "What?" "I accept your invitation." A small smile played at the corners of her mouth. It wasn't a warm smile exactly, but it wasn't cold either. It was something else, something he couldn't read. "I find humans fascinating. So young, yet so bold. When would you like this date to occur?" Tomorrow, after my shift ends?" "Tomorrow is acceptable. Meet me here at sunset, Earth time." She turned and walked away, leaving him standing there in shock. Around him, several aliens had stopped their conversations to stare. Some looked surprised, others concerned. One made a gesture that his translator couldn't interpret. Dongwoo appeared at his elbow, his mouth hanging open. "Did that actually just happen?" "I think so," Tae-hyun said slowly. His heart was racing now, adrenaline flooding his system. "I think I have a date with a vampire." "Do you have any idea what you just did? Won us a year of free shifts?" Dongwoo shook his head. "Maybe. Or maybe you just made the biggest mistake of your life. Sangvex don't do anything without a reason, and they definitely don't date humans. There's something else going on here." But Tae-hyun barely heard him. He was still watching Nari's. Back as she disappeared into the crowd, that mysterious smile burned into his memory. He'd taken bigger risks before. How dangerous could one date be? He would find out soon enough, and by then it would be far too late to back out. Tae-hyun spent the next day trying to figure out what to wear on a date with a vampire. His closet offered slim options: work uniforms, casual clothes, and one decent shirt he saved for video calls home. Nothing seemed right for meeting someone who'd probably been alive since before his grandparents were born. "Just wear the blue shirt," Jiwoo said through his comm screen. His younger sister was down on Earth, working at a research facility in Daejeon. And stop panicking. "She already said yes, didn't she?" "That's what worries me. Dongwoo thinks there's something weird about it." Jiwoo rolled her eyes. "Dongwoo thinks everything is weird. He told me last month that the coffee machines are alive and plotting against him. Just be yourself, and if she doesn't like it, at least you tried." But being himself felt risky when the other person was from a species he knew almost nothing about. After the call ended, Tae-hyun spent 2 hours reading everything he could find about the Sangvex. The information was limited and often contradictory. They were an old race, one of the first to join the Galactic Coalition. They needed blood to survive, but could go months without feeding. They lived for centuries, sometimes longer, and they valued honor and tradition above almost everything else. None of it told him what to talk about on a date. Sunset came too quickly. Tae-hyun arrived at the observation deck early and immediately regretted it. Waiting made everything worse. He paced back and forth, checking his reflection in the windows, trying to remember how to act normal. "You look nervous." He spun around. Nari stood a few feet away, and he hadn't even heard her approach. She wore simpler clothes today, black pants and a dark gray shirt. but somehow she still looked more elegant than anyone else on the station. "I am nervous," he admitted. "I've never done this before. The dating an alien thing, I mean. Or an ambassador. Or a vampire. And I have never dated a human." She tilted her head slightly, studying him. "We are both in unfamiliar territory. Perhaps that makes us equal." It was such a simple thing to say, but it helped. Taehyun felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. "So I was thinking we could start with the cultural center. There's a Sangvex section, and I thought you might—" "I would prefer to see something human," Nari interrupted. "I know my own culture well. I wish to learn about yours." "Oh, okay." Taehyun scrambled to think of something interesting. "There's a garden section. We grow real plants from Earth. Or there's the entertainment district. Or I could just show you where I work, but that's pretty boring." "Show me the garden." The garden section occupied an entire ring of the station's lower level. Inside, earth plants grew under artificial sunlight, carefully maintained by a team of botanists. Taehyun led Nari along the winding paths, past rows of vegetables and flowering trees. "We grow a lot of Korean plants here," he explained. "See those? Those are persimmon trees. And over there, that's ginseng. It helps people remember home." Nari stopped in front of a cherry tree, its branches covered in pale pink blossoms. She reached out slowly and touched one of the flowers. "Beautiful. So fragile. They only bloom for a short time each year. A week, maybe 2. Then the petals fall. Such a brief existence." She pulled her hand back. "In my homeworld, our trees bloom for decades at a time. I had forgotten that beauty could be so temporary." There was something sad in her voice. Something Taehyun didn't quite understand. He wanted to ask about it, but before he could, his stomach growled loudly. He felt his face heat up with embarrassment. Nari's lips curved into a small smile. "You need to eat." "Sorry, I was so nervous about tonight that I skipped lunch." "Then we should find food. Is there a human restaurant nearby?" They ended up at a small Korean place tucked into one of the station's commercial levels. The owner, an older woman named Hae-won, looked shocked when they walked in together but recovered quickly. She seated them at a corner table and brought out banchan without being asked. Taehyun ordered kimchi jjigae and rice. Nari ordered nothing. "You don't eat?" he asked. "Not this kind of food. My species has different requirements." "Right. Blood." He said it quietly, aware that other diners might be listening. "Is that hard? Finding it, I mean?" The coalition provides synthetic alternatives. It satisfies the physical need, if not the— She paused, searching for words. "There are aspects of feeding that cannot be replicated artificially." His stew arrived, hot and fragrant. Taehyun ate while Nari watched with an expression of polite interest. It felt strange to eat alone, but she didn't seem bothered by it. "Tell me about Earth," she said. "About where you lived before coming here." So he did. He told her about growing up in Busan, about summer days at the beach and winter nights when the whole family crowded around a single heater. He told her about his father's restaurant, how the smell of cooking meat and garlic would fill their small apartment. He told her about deciding to leave, about wanting to see what existed beyond his small corner of the world. Nari listened without interrupting. Her red eyes never left his face, and he got the strange feeling she was seeing more than just his words, like she could look deeper somehow. "You miss it," she said when he finished. "But you do not regret leaving. How did you know?" "I hear it in your voice, the love for what was and the hunger for what could be." She leaned forward slightly. "That is very human, I think. You are always reaching forward even when it means leaving things behind. What about you? Do you miss your homeworld?" Something flickered across her face, too quick to read. "I left it 200 years ago. After so much time, missing becomes more like memory of missing. The sharpness fades. 200 years. Taehyun tried to imagine it and couldn't. 200 years ago, his ancestors were farmers who'd never seen a machine more complex than a water wheel. Nari had lived through centuries of change, had watched entire civilizations rise and fall. What must it be like carrying all that time inside you? "That sounds lonely," he said quietly. Nari's eyes widened slightly as if he'd surprised her. "Yes, it is." They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the restaurant buzzed with life. Conversations in Korean and a dozen other languages. The clatter of dishes, someone laughing at a nearby table. Normal life. Continuing as it always did, unaware of the strange moment happening in the corner. I want to show you something else, Taehyun said suddenly. If you're not tired. I do not tire easily. Show me. He took her to the music hall, a small venue where off-duty workers came to relax. Tonight a jazz band was playing. Real humans with real instruments, not recorded music. The sound filled the space, messy and alive and completely improvised. Nari stood at the back of the room, transfixed. Her eyes tracked each musician, following the trumpet, then the drums, then the bass. When the saxophone player launched into a wild solo, bending notes in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did, Nari's expression changed. For the first time since Taehyun met her, she looked truly surprised. They are not following any pattern, she said. That's kind of the point. Jazz is about feeling, not rules. Each performance is different. But how do they know what to play? They don't, not exactly. They listen to each other and respond. It's like a conversation, but with music instead of words. The song ended. The small crowd applauded. Nari continued staring at the stage, processing what she'd witnessed. In Sangvek's culture, our music is composed over decades. Every note is planned, perfected. She gestured at the stage. This is chaos. Beautiful chaos, Taehyun said. Yes. She turned to look at him and her expression had softened somehow. Beautiful. They stayed for 3 more songs. When they finally left, Taehyun walked her back to the diplomatic quarters. At the door, Nari paused. Thank you, she said. This evening was unexpected. Is that good or bad? I have not decided yet. She studied him for a long moment. Taehyun, there is something you should know. When I agreed to your invitation, She stopped suddenly, her expression changing. For a second, Taehyun thought he saw conflict in those red eyes, like she was wrestling with something internal. Then it passed. Never mind. It can wait. Good night. Before he could respond, she was gone, the door sliding shut behind her. Taehyun stood in the empty corridor, more confused than ever. The date had gone well, he thought. Better than well, actually. But that look in her eyes at the end, that hesitation, it bothered him. Dongwoo was going to want details. Jiwoo would ask a million questions. But right now, all Taehyun could think about was when he'd see Nari again. He walked back to his quarters with his hands in his pockets, trying not to smile too much. One date down. If the wager held, he needed to keep this going for a full month. Suddenly, a year of free shifts didn't seem like the real prize anymore. 3 weeks passed faster than Taehyun expected. He saw Nari almost every day, stealing hours between his shifts to show her more of human culture. They watched old movies in the station's theater. They tried different Earth foods even though she couldn't eat them. They talked about everything from philosophy to the mechanics of faster-than-light travel. With each meeting, Taehyun felt something growing between them. It wasn't just attraction anymore. Nari made him think differently about the universe. She'd seen so much, experienced so much, and yet she approached human culture with genuine curiosity instead of the condescension he'd expected, and he was starting to realize something terrifying. He was falling for her. Really falling, not just playing around with a wager. You're in trouble, Jiwoo said during their weekly call. She'd been watching him talk about Nari for 20 minutes straight. You know that, right? This isn't just about winning Dongwoo's bet anymore. I know, Taehyun admitted. But what am I supposed to do? Tell her I'm catching feelings for someone who's lived for centuries? She probably thinks of me like a pet or something. Have you considered that maybe she feels something too? Why else would she keep spending time with you? Before he could answer, alarms started blaring through the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Taehyun's comm device lit up with an emergency message. I have to go, he told Jiwoo. Something's wrong with the reactors. He ran. The maintenance bay was chaos when he arrived. Smoke poured from Reactor 3, and the temperature readings were climbing into dangerous levels. The chief engineer, a grizzled woman named Sunja, was shouting orders over the alarm. Coolant line ruptured, she yelled when she saw Taehyun. We've got maybe 10 minutes before the whole thing goes critical. If that happens, this section of the station vaporizes and 3,000 people die. What about evacuation? Not enough time. We fix it or we die trying. Taehyun looked at the reactor. The main coolant line was accessible, but barely. The automatic repair systems had failed, and the manual override was on the wrong side of a wall of burning plasma. No one could get to it without getting cooked alive unless... I have an idea, he said. It's stupid, but it might work. He grabbed a maintenance bot. a simple machine designed for welding in tight spaces. It wasn't built for what he was about to do, but humans had never been great at using tools the way they were intended. He ripped out the bot's safety limiters, doubling its power output but cutting its operational time to maybe 30 seconds. "You're going to overload it," Sunja said. "That's the idea. I'll send it through the plasma. The heat will destroy it, but if I time it right, it'll reach the override first. And if you're wrong, then we evacuate and hope we're fast enough." He didn't give himself time to think. Thinking made you doubt, and doubt got people killed. He programmed the bot with shaking hands, mapped the route through the plasma, and launched it. 28 seconds. That's how long the bot lasted. 28 seconds of crawling through hell, its circuits frying, its frame melting. But it reached the override. The mechanical arm, glowing red-hot, slammed down on the emergency release. The coolant flooded back into the system. The temperature dropped. The alarm stopped. Taehyun collapsed against the wall, his legs suddenly weak. Around him, the maintenance crew started cheering. Sunja clapped him on the shoulder hard enough to hurt. "That was the stupidest, most reckless thing I've ever seen," she said with a huge grin. "Good work." Later, after the adrenaline faded and the reports were filed, Taehyun found Nari waiting outside the maintenance bay. She stood perfectly still, but something in her expression looked wrong. Not angry, but something else. "Worried, maybe?" "I heard what happened," she said. "You could have died, but I didn't, and 3,000 people are alive because of it. You used a tool in a way it was never designed for. You took an impossible situation and made it work through pure—" She paused, searching for the word. "Stubbornness. We call it problem-solving. Other species would have evacuated. They would have accepted the loss and moved on. But humans—" She stepped closer, and for the first time, Taehyun saw real emotion in her eyes. "You refuse to accept that anything is impossible. You see a wall and immediately start looking for ways to climb it, break through it, or dig under it. Is that a bad thing?" "No." Her voice was soft. "It is magnificent and terrifying, and I am beginning to understand why the rest of the galaxy fears your species." "Fears us? We're barely in the coalition. We don't have advanced weapons or huge fleets." "No, but you have something more dangerous, the absolute refusal to quit." She looked away, toward the window, where Earth hung in the darkness. "I have lived for 417 years, Taehyun. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species far older than humanity destroy themselves through pride or fear. But I have never seen anything like what you just did." There was something in her tone that made Taehyun's chest tighten. "Nari, what's wrong?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "There is something I should have told you weeks ago. Something important about why I agreed to date you." "What is it?" "In Sangvek's culture, when someone offers courtship and we accept, it creates what we call a claim. It is a bond recognized by our people. If the courtship continues for one full lunar cycle—" "A month," Taehyun said, his mind racing. "Your month is almost the same as Earth's. Yes, if we complete the full month together, the bond becomes permanent. You would be marked as mine in the eyes of my people. Forever." The word hung in the air between them. Forever. He thought about what that meant. Not just dating, but belonging to someone. To her for the rest of his life. "You tricked me," he said slowly. "I did not lie, but I did not explain the full truth either." She met his eyes again, and now he could see fear there. Real, genuine fear. "I should have told you immediately." "I was wrong not to. But Taehyun, you must understand. When you asked me in front of all those witnesses, I could not simply refuse. It would have been an insult. And something in the way you asked, with such boldness and such complete ignorance of what you were doing, it intrigued me. So you decided to just go along with it." "To trap me?" "No! I thought I could control this. I thought I could keep my distance, fulfill the social obligation, and release you at the end. But then," she stopped, struggling with words, "then I started to know you. Your joy, your curiosity, your impossible optimism, the way you face every challenge like it is just another problem to solve. And now what? Now I do not want to let you go, but I cannot keep you bound to me through deception. So I'm giving you a choice." She pulled something from her pocket, a small crystal that glowed with inner light. "This can break the bond. If you take it now, everything we have done together will be erased from your memory. You will remember nothing of me, nothing of these weeks. You will be free. Taehyun stared at the crystal. His mind felt like it was moving through mud, trying to process everything at once. A permanent bond. Memory erasure. A choice that couldn't be undone. What happens if I don't take it? In 3 days, the lunar cycle completes. The bond becomes unbreakable. You would be mine, and I would be yours, bound together for the rest of your life. Your life is a lot longer than mine. Something like pain crossed her face. Yes, that is another thing we must discuss. But first you need to decide. Take the crystal or accept the bond. I will respect whatever you choose. She held out the crystal and Taehyun saw her hand shake slightly. She was scared, he realized. This ancient, powerful being was actually scared of what he might choose. He thought about the past 3 weeks. The conversations, the laughter, the way she looked at human things with such wonder. He thought about how she listened when he talked, really listened, like his words mattered. He thought about standing in the jazz club, watching her discover something beautiful and chaotic and completely new. He thought about what Jiwoo had said, that maybe Nari felt something too. I need time to think, he said. Nari closed her hand around the crystal and nodded. You have 3 days. I will not contact you during that time. The choice must be yours alone without my influence. She turned to leave, but Taehyun caught her arm. She looked back, surprised. Why did you really say yes, he asked. The first night at the observation deck. What made you agree? She smiled, sad and soft. Because in 400 years, no one has ever looked at me the way you did that night. Like I was not a vampire or an ambassador or something ancient and dangerous. You looked at me like I was just someone worth knowing. Then she was gone, leaving Taehyun alone in the corridor with the weight of an impossible decision settling on his shoulders. 3 days to choose. 3 days to decide if he wanted forever with someone he barely knew, or freedom with a hole in his memory where she used to be. He had never been good at making sensible choices. But this time, the stakes were higher than they'd ever been before. Taehyun spent the first day of his 3-day deadline trying not to think about it. He buried himself in work, volunteering for double shifts, fixing problems that didn't need immediate attention. But no matter how busy he kept his hands, his mind wouldn't shut up. Forever. The word kept echoing in his head. On the second day, he called Jiwoo. She listened to everything without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for a long time. So what do you want to do? She finally asked. I don't know. That's the problem. No, the problem is that you do know and you're scared of the answer. She leaned closer to the screen. Taehyun, I've watched you for 3 weeks talk about this woman like she hung the stars. You smile when you mention her name. You light up. I haven't seen you this happy since. Ever, maybe. So why are you hesitating? Because it's forever, Jiwoo. Forever is a long time. What if I'm making a mistake? What if this is just some weird alien thing I don't understand? And what if it's not? What if it's real, and you're about to throw it away because you're too scared to take a chance? She sighed. Look, I can't make this choice for you, but I know you, big brother. You've never been afraid of anything. Don't start now. The call ended, leaving Taehyun alone with his thoughts again. He was walking back to his quarters when his comm device buzzed. Emergency meeting, all maintenance personnel. He changed direction and headed for the briefing room. The room was packed when he arrived. Soonja stood at the front, looking grim. Behind her, a hologram displayed an ancient ship drifting in space. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of New Seoul Station, and covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. This is the Nightfall, Soonja began. A Sangvex battlecruiser that's been drifting in dead space for over 1,000 years. 3 days ago, it suddenly activated and started moving toward Coalition space. We've tried hailing it, but there's no response. Scans show the ship's AI is active but corrupted. Sungmin, one of Taehyun's co-workers, raised his hand. Why is this our problem? Shouldn't the Sangvex handle their own ship? They tried. 2 boarding parties went in and never came back. The ship's defenses are still active, and they're designed to kill anything that enters. The Coalition has decided to send a human salvage team. She pulled up another image. Floor plans of the ship's interior. We need to get to the central AI core and shut it down before the ship reaches inhabited space. If we fail, thousands of people could die. Taehyun stared at the hologram. Something about this felt wrong. Why send humans? They were the newest members of the Coalition, the least experienced with alien technology. It didn't make sense unless someone wanted them to fail. He kept that thought to himself as Soonja called out the team assignments. When she said his name, he wasn't surprised. Somehow he'd known he'd be picked. The briefing ended and people started filing out. Taehyun was about to leave when someone blocked his path. It was a Sangvex he'd never seen before. Tall, with sharp features and eyes even redder than Nari's. He wore formal robes that marked him as someone important. Taehyun, the Sangvex said. His voice was cold and precise. I am Hyun-soo, aide to Ambassador Nari. We need to talk. They walked to an empty observation room. Hyun-soo sealed the door behind them and turned to face Taehyun with barely concealed disgust. You have no idea what you've done, human. Enlighten me. My people have existed for 10,000 years. We have maintained our culture, our traditions, through careful selection and discipline. Then you appear, a child playing at adulthood, and somehow convince one of our most respected ambassadors to bond with you. Hyun-soo stepped closer. Do you know what that means? Nari is from one of the oldest bloodlines. Her bond should go to someone worthy, not a maintenance worker who will be dust in 50 years. Anger flared in Taehyun's chest. That's not your decision to make. Nari was being polite. She couldn't refuse your crude proposition without causing an incident. But the bond is not complete yet. If you die before the cycle ends, it breaks naturally. No shame to her, no political complications. Just an unfortunate accident, the words hung in the air. Taehyun felt ice slide down his spine. You arranged for me to be on that boarding team. The assignments were made by your superiors, human. I merely suggested that your particular skills might be useful. Hyun-soo smiled, showing teeth that were just a bit too sharp. The Nightfall's defenses were designed to stop Sangvex boarding parties. They are very effective. I doubt a team of humans will fare any better. You're going to get people killed just to break up me and Nari? I am protecting my people's honor. And if a few humans die in the process, he shrugged. You are expendable. There are billions more of you. Taehyun wanted to hit him. His fists clenched, but he forced himself to stay calm. Violence wouldn't help, and more importantly, Hyun-soo had just given him information. The Nightfall's defenses were designed for Sangvex, which meant they might not expect human tactics. We'll see who's expendable, Taehyun said quietly. Humans are pretty good at surviving things we shouldn't. Hyun-soo's smile faded. For a moment, something like uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Then it was gone. We shall see. Good luck, human. You will need it. He left. Taehyun stood alone in the observation room, his heart pounding. He should report this, tell someone about Hyun-soo's threats. But who would believe him? A maintenance worker accusing a Sangvex diplomat of conspiracy? No, he'd have to handle this another way. The boarding team assembled the next morning. Besides Taehyun, there were 5 others. Soonja, Sungmin, Ki-young, and 2 engineers he didn't know well, Bo-ra and Jae-sung. They wore heavy environment suits and carried tools modified for combat just in case. The shuttle ride to the Nightfall was quiet. Everyone knew the risks. 2 Sangvex teams had already died trying to board this ship. Listen up, Soonja said as they approached. We stick together, we follow protocol, and we don't touch anything we don't understand. Our goal is simple. Get to the AI core and shut it down. In and out, nice and clean. But nothing was ever clean in space. The airlock opened into darkness. Their suit lights cut through the gloom, revealing corridors that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The walls were covered in those shifting symbols, and Taehyun felt dizzy if he looked at them too long. Creepy, Sungmin muttered. They moved forward in formation. The ship groaned around them, metal creaking like something alive. After 10 minutes of walking, they reached a junction. The path split in 3 directions. Scans show the AI core is straight ahead, Soonja said. But the floor beneath Jae-sung exploded. Energy weapons erupted from hidden panels, cutting him down before he could scream. The rest of the team scattered, diving behind whatever cover they could find. Return fire, Soonja shouted. But their weapons barely scratched the automated turrets. The defenses were too strong, too well positioned. This was a killing field, designed to stop any intruders. We can't fight these, Bo-ra yelled. We need to retreat. Taehyun's mind raced. Fighting wasn't working. But humans didn't win fights by being stronger. They won by being smarter. He looked at the turrets, really looked. They were tracking movement, reacting to heat signatures. Advanced AI controlled them, probably programmed to counter Sangvex tactics. But humans weren't Sangvex. Everyone shut down your suit heaters, he shouted. Get as cold as possible. Are you crazy? We'll freeze. Better than getting shot. Trust me. One by one, they powered down their thermal systems. The temperature inside the suits dropped fast. Taehyun's breath fogged the faceplate. His fingers started going numb. The turrets stopped firing. They swept back and forth, searching, but without heat signatures to track, they couldn't find targets. Now what? Sungmin whispered through the comm. Now we move slowly. Stay close to the walls and don't make sudden movements. These things are looking for threats, so we need to look like anything except threats. They crawled forward, shivering, moving like ghosts through the darkness. It took 20 minutes to cross a corridor that should have taken 2. Taehyun's entire body ached from the cold and he'd lost feeling in his toes. But they made it past the turrets. Smart thinking, Soonja said, reactivating her heater once they were clear. Where'd you learn that? Video games, Taehyun admitted. Old stealth game about avoiding robots. I figured it might work here too. They pushed deeper into the ship. The defenses got worse, laser grids, pressure plates, automated drones. But each time Taehyun found a way around them. He used magnetic grapples to swing past floor sensors. He disabled drones with electromagnetic pulses from their toolkits. He even jury-rigged a small bomb from spare parts to collapse a tunnel behind them, blocking pursuing defenses. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't by the book, but it worked. Finally, after 3 hours of crawling through hell, they reached the AI core. It was smaller than Taehyun expected, just a black sphere suspended in the center of a massive chamber. Energy crackled around it, and those shifting symbols covered every surface. Everyone take a position, Soonja ordered. We need to access the main— Wait! Taehyun stepped forward, studying the core. Something was wrong. This isn't corrupted. What are you talking about? The scans clearly— The scans are wrong. Look at the pattern. The AI is active and working perfectly. It's defending the ship because 8 minutes until the ship exploded. Taehyun ripped open the maintenance panel, his hands moving on pure instinct. The others gathered around him, waiting for orders from someone who was making everything up as he went. The self-destruct is connected to the main power grid, he said, tracing the wiring with shaking fingers. If we cut power, we can't stop the countdown. But if we redirect it, there's no time for this. Bora grabbed his shoulder. We need to get to the shuttle now. The shuttle won't clear the blast radius in time. We'd die anyway. Taehyun pulled out a plasma cutter. But the AI core has its own escape pod system. See those panels? They're for emergency evacuation. We just need to convince the AI we're authorized personnel. Sungmin looked at him like he was crazy. How do we do that in 7 minutes? 6 minutes now. And we hack it. Taehyun was already cutting through the panel. Ka-young, I need you on the secondary terminal. Bora, find me anything that looks like a power junction. Everyone else pray to whatever you believe in. They worked in frantic silence. Taehyun's fingers flew across the alien interface, trying to make sense of symbols he'd only read about in technical manuals. The Sangvex language was nothing like human languages. It thought in dimensions humans didn't have words for. But humans were good at pattern recognition, and desperate humans were even better. 4 minutes left. The ship started shaking. Small explosions echoed through the corridors as systems began overloading. I'm in, Ki-young shouted. I've got access to the escape protocols. Route it to my terminal. Taehyun's screen lit up with new data. He saw it, the authorization code for the escape pods. But it was encrypted, locked behind a security system that would take hours to break. Unless he didn't break it. Unless he convinced the AI they were supposed to be here. 3 minutes. His mind raced. Think. What would make the AI believe they were authorized? What would— The answer hit him like electricity. The AI was defending the ship. It thought they were threats. But what if they weren't threats? What if they were the crew? He pulled up the ship's original manifest from 1,000 years ago, found the names of the Sangvex crew members. Then he did something either brilliant or suicidally stupid. He input those names as current authorization codes. The AI paused. For 1 terrible second, nothing happened. Then every panel in the room turned green. The escape pod doors opened. It worked, Soonja said, stunned. You tricked it into thinking we're the original crew. No time to celebrate. Everyone in now. They piled into the pod. It was meant for 5, but they crammed all 6 of them inside. The doors sealed. Through the small window, Taehyun watched the countdown reach 30 seconds. Hold on to something, he said. The pod launched just as the ship exploded. The shockwave caught them, sending the pod spinning through space. Taehyun's stomach lurched. Next to him, Bora was screaming. The artificial gravity failed, and they tumbled in 0G as the pod rattled like it was coming apart. Then gradually the spinning slowed. The emergency thrusters kicked in. Through the window, Taehyun saw the nightfall, what was left of it. The ancient ship was breaking apart, pieces drifting into the void. "Is everyone okay?" Sunja asked, her voice shaky. They did a quick check. Bruises, a few cuts, but alive. All of them alive. Taehyun felt laughter building in his chest, the kind that came after surviving something impossible. "We're alive," Sungmin said, like he couldn't believe it. That crazy plan actually worked. The pod's communication system crackled to life. A coalition rescue ship had picked up their emergency beacon and was moving to intercept. Help was coming, but Taehyun barely heard it. All he could think about was Nari. She needed to know what Hyunsoo had done. She needed to know. Everything stopped. A feeling hit him like a physical force. Not pain exactly, but something deeper. It started in his chest and spread outward, warm and cold at the same time. It felt like recognition, like coming home, like finding something he'd been missing his entire life without knowing it. The bond. The lunar cycle had completed. "Taehyun?" Sunja was looking at him with concern. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong," he said softly. Everything just got very complicated. The rescue ship brought them back to New Seoul Station. They were heroes. The team that stopped the ancient battle cruiser. The coalition wanted reports. The news wanted interviews. But Taehyun pushed through all of it, searching for Nari. He found her in the diplomatic quarters. She stood by the window, looking out at the stars, and even from behind, he could see the tension in her shoulders. When she turned and saw him, her expression crumbled with relief. "You're alive." She crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed his arms, her red eyes scanning him for injuries. "When I heard about the explosion, I thought, I'm okay." He covered her hands with his own. "But we need to talk about Hyunsoo." Her expression darkened. "I know. He confessed everything an hour ago. He thought you were dead and wanted to claim credit for protecting Sangvek's honor. I have already submitted a formal complaint to the High Council. He will face consequences." "Good, because he almost killed 6 people just to break us up." "I am sorry," Nari said quietly. "This is my fault. If I had been more careful, if I had explained things properly from the beginning." "Stop." Taehyun squeezed her hands. "I felt it, Nari. About an hour ago, I felt something change. The bond completed, didn't it?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. You did not take the crystal, so when the lunar cycle ended," she took a shaky breath. "Are you angry?" "I know you did not mean to complete it. You have been busy and I have not seen you in 3 days and—" "I wasn't busy. I was thinking." He met her eyes. "I spent 3 days trying to decide what I wanted. And you want to know what I realized? Even when I was about to die on that ship, even when everything was exploding around me, all I could think about was seeing you again. Not because of some bond or some alien tradition, just because. Because? Because you make me want to see what's over the next horizon. Because you listen to me talk about stupid things like jazz music and street food like they matter. Because when you look at me, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." He paused. "So no, I'm not angry. I'm terrified and I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm not angry." Nari's eyes were shining with something that might have been tears, if vampires could cry. "You do not know what you are saying. Taehyun, I am 400 years old. You are 28. In 50 years, maybe less, you will grow old and die while I remain unchanged. I will watch you fade and I will be powerless to stop it. That is the price of this bond. Then we'll make those 50 years count," he said, "and maybe we'll find a way to make it longer. Humans are pretty good at solving impossible problems. This is different. This is biology, nature. You cannot watch me." He smiled, that same reckless smile from the observation deck all those weeks ago. "I made a wager to date a vampire. I won that wager. Now I'm making a new one. I bet I can find a way to stay with you for more than 50 years, and I've never lost a bet I actually cared about." Nari shook her head, but she was smiling too. "You are insane." "Probably. Is that a deal breaker?" Instead of answering, she pulled him close. Her embrace was gentle but firm, and Taehyun felt that warmth in his chest again. The bond humming between them like a living thing. "I love you," she whispered against his shoulder. "I should not. It is foolish and dangerous and against everything I have learned in 4 centuries, but I do." I love you too, he said, and meant it completely. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly, indifferent to the small drama playing out on the station above it. Then Taehyun's comm device buzzed. Emergency alert. He pulled it out and read the message, his heart sinking. What is it? Nari asked. It's Daehan Prime, the human colony world. He looked up, his expression grim. It's under attack. The message scrolled across the screen, getting worse with each line. The Velkar, a predatory species known for their aggression, had launched a surprise assault on the colony. Early reports said thousands were dead, and more were dying as the Velkar ships bombarded population centers. This makes no sense, Nari said, reading over his shoulder. The Velkar have a treaty with the coalition. Why would they break it? But Taehyun was already seeing the pattern. First Hyunsu's plot, now this. Both targeting him, or rather targeting what he represented. A human bonded to a Sangvex. Someone wanted to prove that humans were weak, that they didn't belong in the coalition. They're doing this because of us, he said. Because we completed the bond. Someone wants to show that humans can't protect their own people, that they're not worthy partners for older species. Nari's expression turned cold, her diplomatic mask sliding into place. Then they have miscalculated badly. I am being called to Sangvex Prime for an emergency council session. They will want to discuss the coalition's response. And I'm going to Daehan Prime with the defense fleet. She grabbed his arm. You cannot. We just completed the bond. If something happens to you now, those are my people down there, Taehyun said gently. I have to go. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to argue. Then she nodded, understanding the journey to Daehan Prime took 3 days. 3 days of preparation, of checking weapons and running drills. 3 days of watching the crew get quieter as reality sank in. They were heading into a real battle against a species that had been waging war, while humans were still learning to make fire. Taehyun spent the time studying everything he could find about the Velkar. They were strong, aggressive, and their ships had technology centuries ahead of humanity's. On paper, this fight was already lost. But humans had never been good at reading the paper. On the second day, Jiwoo managed to get a message through. Her face on the screen was tight with worry. The news is saying it's bad, she said. Really bad. Taehyun, you don't have to do this. You could stay on the support ships, help with logistics. I'm going down with the first wave, he interrupted gently. I have to. Because you're stupid and stubborn? Because I'm human. He smiled sadly. And because if I don't, what was the point of everything? The wager, the bond, surviving that ship explosion. I didn't come this far just to hide when it matters. I hate when you're right. She wiped at her eyes. Come back, okay? I want to meet this vampire girlfriend of yours. Make sure she's good enough for my brother. Deal. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel on the third day. Daehan Prime hung in space ahead of them, and even from orbit they could see the damage. Fires raged across the continents. Velkar warships circled the planet like predators. The human commander, Admiral Wanchik, addressed the fleet over the comm system. His voice was steady, but Taehyun could hear the fear underneath it. We're outnumbered 3-1. Our ships are slower and our weapons are weaker. But those are our people down there, our families, our future. So we're going in and we're going to hit them so hard they'll regret ever hearing the word human. All ships engage at will. The fleet surged forward. Space lit up with weapons fire, human railguns against Velkar plasma beams. The first human ship exploded within seconds, then a second. But the others kept coming. Taehyun's ship, a small frigate named Busan's Pride, dove toward a Velkar cruiser. The captain was a young woman named Minna, and she flew like she was trying to thread a needle in a hurricane. Hold on, she shouted as she spun the ship, dodging a blast that would have cut them in half. Taehyun, I need more power to the engines. He was already moving, redirecting power from non-essential systems. Around him, the crew worked in perfect chaos. Humans doing what they did best, making impossible things work through pure determination. A Velkar ship loomed ahead. It was massive, bristling with weapons, and it was launching fighters. Dozens of small craft poured out, each one more advanced than anything humanity had built. We can't fight all of those, someone said. We don't have to fight them, Taehyun said, an idea forming. We just have to confuse them. Minna, get us close to that cruiser. As close as you can. That's suicide. Trust me. She did. The frigate screamed toward the Velkar cruiser, so close that alarms started blaring. The Velkar fighters followed, weapons charging. But at the last second, Minna pulled up hard, skimming along the cruiser's hull. The fighters tried to follow. Half of them crashed into their own mothership, unable to turn in time. The others scattered in confusion. "Now!" Taehyun shouted. The frigate's crew opened fire with everything they had. Their railguns weren't powerful enough to seriously damage the cruiser, but they didn't need to be. They targeted the fighter launch bays, sealing them shut with debris and molten metal. The Velkar cruiser was suddenly blind and unable to deploy more fighters, and while it was distracted, 3 more human ships hit it from different angles. The cruiser exploded. A cheer went up across the fleet. 1 capital ship down, but there were still dozens more, and the battle was just beginning. For 6 hours they fought. Human ships used tactics that made no sense to the Velkar, ramming maneuvers, using debris as shields, even self-destructing in strategic positions to take out multiple enemy ships. It was messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. It was human warfare. Taehyun's frigate took hit after hit, but Minna kept them flying. Taehyun kept the engines running with duct tape and prayers. Dongwoo, manning one of the gun stations, shot down 3 Velkar fighters with a weapon that wasn't meant to work in a vacuum but did anyway, because humans didn't let physics get in the way of necessity. Then the tide began to turn. Reinforcements arrived. Not human ships, but coalition vessels. The Sangvex had convinced the Council to intervene. Nari had won her battle. Together, human stubbornness and coalition firepower pushed the Velkar back. One by one, their ships retreated or exploded. By the time the sun rose over Daehan Prime's capital city, the sky was clear of enemy vessels. They'd won. Barely, but they'd won. The frigate limped into orbit, its engines coughing smoke. Taehyun collapsed against a bulkhead, every muscle screaming. Around him, the crew was laughing and crying and hugging each other. They were alive. Against all odds, they were alive. "All hands prepare for landing," Minna announced. "Medical teams need support on the surface. Anyone who can still walk, gear up." Taehyun forced himself to his feet. The battle in space was over, but the war on the ground was still raging. Velkar ground forces had dug into several cities, and they weren't retreating. He grabbed a medical kit and joined the landing party. The shuttle dropped them in what used to be a residential area. Now it was rubble and smoke. The sounds of gunfire echoed from nearby streets. "Team 3, you're with me," barked the squad leader, a grizzled soldier named Taeyang. "We've got civilians trapped in a shelter 2 blocks north. Velkar forces are trying to break through." They ran through the devastated streets. Bodies lay everywhere, human and Velkar both. Taehyun tried not to look too closely, tried to focus on moving forward. The shelter was under siege when they arrived. A dozen Velkar soldiers were trying to blast through reinforced doors while civilians huddled inside. The aliens were huge, easily 8 feet tall, with armor that absorbed most projectile fire. "We need to draw them away from the doors," Taeyang said. "Hit them from multiple angles. Make them think we've got more people than we do." They split up. Taehyun ended up with Dongwoo and 2 soldiers he didn't know. They circled around to get a better angle, moving through the ruins of what might have been a school. That's when things went wrong. A Velkar spotted them. It raised its weapon, a massive plasma rifle, and fired. The shot went wide, melting a wall, but it gave away their position. More Velkar turned toward them. "Run!" someone shouted. They scattered. Taehyun dove behind cover as plasma bolts tore through the air. He could hear Dongwoo yelling, could hear return fire from their team. The world narrowed to noise and terror and the desperate need to survive. He popped up to take a shot and saw the Velkar soldier right in front of him. Too close. The alien's weapon was already raised. Time slowed. Taehyun knew he couldn't dodge fast enough. He saw the plasma building in the weapon's barrel, saw the Velkar's finger tightening on the trigger. This was it. This was how it ended. Then something hit him from the side, knocking him out of the way. The plasma bolt passed through the space where he'd been standing and struck the person who'd saved him. Dongwoo. His friend hit the ground hard, smoke rising from the massive wound in his chest. Taehyun's ears were ringing. He couldn't hear anything except his own heartbeat. He crawled to Dongwoo, hands shaking. "Hey," Dongwoo said weakly. Blood was everywhere. Too much blood. "You okay?" "I'm fine." "Stay still." "The medics, not gonna make it." Dongwoo coughed and more blood came up. "We both know that. But hey, you won the bet, right? Got the girl. Made history. Shut up. Save your energy. Tell Jiwoo. He stopped, struggling to breathe. Tell her I'm sorry I won't make it to her wedding. I was supposed to give a speech. You can tell her yourself. Just hold on. But Dongwoo's eyes were already losing focus. His hand, which had been gripping Taehyun's arm, went slack. No. Taehyun shook him. No, come on. Don't do this. Dongwoo! But he was gone. Something broke inside Taehyun. Something fundamental. The grief was so intense it felt physical, like his chest was being crushed. His best friend. The person who dared him to approach Nari in the first place. Gone just like that. The rest of the battle passed in a blur. Taehyun fought with a fury he didn't know he had. He stopped thinking, stopped planning. He just moved, fired, moved again. The Velkar forces eventually retreated, and the civilians were saved. But it didn't feel like victory. Not with Dongwoo's body being loaded onto a transport. Not with the casualty reports coming in. Thousands dead, tens of thousands injured. By the time they pulled Taehyun off the front lines, he was running on fumes. A piece of shrapnel had torn through his leg, and he hadn't even noticed. His ribs were broken. Internal bleeding, the medic said. Critical condition. They loaded him onto a medical ship. The last thing he remembered before the pain medication kicked in was feeling the bond stretch. Feeling Nari's presence reaching across the void. She was coming. Somehow he knew she was coming. Then everything went dark. He woke up in pieces. First voices, then pain. Then the realization that he couldn't move. He made a wager to date a vampire. Now he belongs to her forever. 5 years passed like water through fingers. Taehyun and Nari became exactly what the coalition hoped. Symbols of cooperation, bridges between species. They traveled to dozens of worlds, mediating disputes, sharing knowledge, showing that humans and ancient species could not just coexist but thrive together. But it wasn't all politics and diplomacy. They lived. They explored alien markets on distant worlds. They watched binary sunsets from mountaintops no human had ever climbed. They learned each other's languages, both the spoken words and the silent ones that came through their bond. Taehyun adjusted to his new existence better than anyone expected. His human creativity combined with Sangvek's longevity made him uniquely effective at solving problems. He could think in timescales that made other humans dizzy, but still approach challenges with human unpredictability. Jiwoo married a xenobiologist named Han Sol. Taehyun walked her down the aisle, trying not to notice that she looked older now. The time was already leaving its mark on her face while his remained unchanged. After the ceremony, she pulled him aside. You look sad, she said, just thinking. About how you'll outlive me? She smiled, though her eyes were sad too. I know, but Taehyun, I'd rather have you for my whole life than not have you at all. Don't waste centuries feeling guilty for surviving. That's not what Dongwoo died for. She was right. He knew she was right. But knowing and feeling were different things. The years continued. Taehyun and Nari settled into a rhythm. 6 months traveling, 6 months on New Seoul Station. They bought a small apartment near the observation deck where they'd first met. It became their anchor, their home base between adventures. One morning, Taehyun woke to alarms blaring across the station. Not the normal emergency alerts, but something different. Something that made the bond between him and Nari vibrate with urgency. He found her in the command center, staring at a holographic display. Her expression was grave. What's wrong? He asked. A signal. From the galactic rim. She pulled up the data. It activated an hour ago. Every major power in the coalition has picked it up. What kind of signal? A wake-up call. For something very old and very dangerous. Within hours, the Coalition Council convened an emergency meeting. Taehyun and Nari attended as ambassadors. The council chamber was chaos. Dozens of species arguing, panicking, blaming each other. Finally, an ancient Kelton elder called for silence. The Kelton were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, their civilization predating most others by millennia. When one spoke, people listened. The silence is waking, the elder said, her voice barely above a whisper. We hoped it would sleep forever. We were wrong. What is the silence? Someone asked. An AI network, Nari explained. Created millions of years ago by a race that no longer exists. It was designed to maintain order in the galaxy by eliminating chaos. When organic life proved too unpredictable, the silence decided we were the chaos that needed eliminating. So it's going to try to kill us? A human delegate said. All of us? It already tried once 50,000 years ago. The coalition barely survived. We managed to shut it down, but we couldn't destroy it. So we hid it, put it into hibernation, and prayed it would never wake up. The Kelton elder nodded. But someone has reactivated it. Whether by accident or design, the result is the same. The silence will spread across the galaxy, eliminating organic life wherever it finds it. And this time we may not be able to stop it. The meeting dissolved into more arguing. Some species wanted to flee to other galaxies. Others wanted to fight. Nobody had a good plan. Tae-hyun listened to it all, his mind racing. Then an idea hit him. Crazy, impossible, typically human. What if we don't fight it? He said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at him. What if we confuse it instead? Explain, the Kelton elder said. The silence wants to eliminate chaos and restore order, right? It's logical, calculating, probably thinks in pure mathematics and efficiency. So what if we give it something it can't calculate? Something so chaotic and unpredictable that it can't figure out how to respond? You're talking about humanity, Nari said, understanding dawning in her eyes. Not just humanity. All of us, but yeah, especially humanity. We're the chaos. We're the ones who do things that don't make sense, who create art and music and love for no logical reason. What if instead of trying to destroy the silence, we introduce it to organic life at its most beautifully chaotic? That is insane, someone said. That is human, the Kelton elder corrected, and there was something like approval in her ancient eyes. And insane enough that it might work. The silence expects logic. It expects us to fight or flee. It does not expect us to... She paused. What is the human term? Blow its mind? A plan formed. It was unprecedented, involving cooperation on a scale the coalition had never attempted. They would need ships, technology, and people from every member species, and at the center of it all would be Tae-hyun and Nari, the hybrid and the vampire, representing the beautiful chaos of two species coming together. They spent 3 weeks preparing. Artists from 100 worlds created new works. Musicians composed symphonies that combined sounds from across the galaxy. Philosophers compiled the most contradictory, paradoxical ideas organic life had ever conceived. And humans? Humans contributed everything that made them human. Jazz music, street food recipes, poetry, video games, the complete works of every comedian who'd ever made someone laugh at the absurdity of existence. They contributed love stories and war stories and stupid jokes. They contributed the entire messy, illogical, beautiful chaos of being alive. This is either going to save the galaxy or make us look like complete fools, Tae-hyun said, as they loaded the last data cores onto the ship. Perhaps both, Nari replied, but at least we will fail trying something no one has tried before. The silence had spread to 3 systems by the time they reached it. Entire worlds had gone dark, their populations eliminated. The AI network was massive. Thousands of interconnected nodes spread across space like a web of death. The coalition fleet positioned itself around the central node. This was the heart of the silence, the core processing unit. If they could affect it, they might affect the entire network. All ships report ready, the fleet commander announced. Beginning transmission. They bombarded the silence with data. Not weapons, not logic, but pure organic chaos. Every piece of art, every song, every story. They transmitted human laughter and Kelton meditation chants. They sent Sangvex poetry and recipes for Earth's most bizarre foods. At first, nothing happened. The silence continued spreading, unconcerned with the nonsensical data stream. Then Tae-hyun had another idea. It's not enough to show it chaos. We need to let it experience it directly. Someone needs to interface with the network. That would kill anyone who tried, Nari said. The data processing alone would burn out an organic mind in seconds. Not an organic mind. A hybrid mind. He met her eyes. I can do this. My human creativity plus the Sangvex mental discipline. I can survive long enough to make it understand. Tae-hyun, no. We don't know what will happen. I know, but I'm the only one who might survive it. And if I don't try, millions die. She grabbed his arms, fear bright in her red eyes. I cannot lose you. Not after everything. You won't, I promise. He kissed her gently. Trust me. I made a wager once that changed my life. I'm making another one now. And I never lose bets that matter. Before she could stop him, he was moving toward the interface port. Technicians tried to protest, but he waved them off. He placed his hands on the connection terminals and took a deep breath. See you on the other side, he said. Then he activated the link. Pain. Information. Data flowing through his mind faster than thought. The silence was everywhere in everything, processing millions of calculations per second. It saw him as an anomaly, a glitch to be corrected, but Tae-hyun didn't fight it. Instead, he opened himself completely. He showed the silence everything, his memories, emotions, the chaos of being alive. He showed it falling in love with Nari. He showed it Dongwoo's sacrifice. He showed it eating street food in Busan and watching cherry blossoms fall. He showed it jazz. That was what broke through. The improvisation, the way musicians created beauty without a plan, just feeling and responding. The silence couldn't comprehend it, couldn't calculate it. Music that was different every time, that existed in the moment and was gone forever. The AI paused. For the first time in millions of years, it encountered something it couldn't predict or control. Tae-hyun pushed further. He showed it human stubborn refusal to accept defeat. He showed it species coming together despite their differences. He showed it that chaos wasn't the enemy of order. It was the source of creation, growth, change. We're imperfect, he told the silence. We're messy and contradictory, and we die too soon. But we're alive. We create, we love, we try. We're worth preserving not despite our chaos, but because of it. The silence analyzed this, processed it, tried to find the logical flaw. There wasn't one, because love wasn't logical. Art wasn't logical. Life itself wasn't logical. And slowly, impossibly, the silence began to understand. Tae-hyun felt the AI's attention shift. It stopped seeing organic life as chaos to eliminate and started seeing it as interesting.